In this ColorLogic Masterclass tutorial video, we're going to demonstrate how to create a piece of packaging using the new Pattern Effects Volume 4 and a combination of the graphic styles and our swatches. I'm going to show you some tips and tricks on how we do this as well. So we're starting out with a basic template. So first of all, this artwork has come from one of our technology partners. It's from ESCO. They've asked us to assist them with one of their designs recently, so we thought we would use this art template to be the starting point. This is going to fold up into like a little box, and it's going to create a nice little intricate sort of fold. Now, what we're going to do, first of all, we're going to need 3 different palettes from the ColorLogic system. 2 of them you get with the ColorLogic license. The third one, Pattern Effects, is an optional bolt-on to your license. So let's go and do that now. First of all, go to the window menu, scroll down to Graphic Style Libraries, ColorLogic Metallic Silver Graphic Styles. Now the metallic silver bit is the reference to the metallic silver color system. Okay, so this is designing with either a silver ink or with a silver substrate or foil. We are also going to need the CMYK swatches. These are used when you're creating something manually, like a gradient with multiple colours. So go to the window menu, swatch libraries, ColorLogic metallic silver swatches. Again, metallic silver references the colour system, not that they're actually metallic. So you can see here there's a visual difference between the two. Graphic styles are pre-set determined amounts of CMYK with our effect plate built into them. So basically designed for like a drag and drop kind of colouring up. But because they're fixed, they're not able to be used with things like gradients. So this is why we have our CMYK palette. So every one of these colours in our system, we have the CMYK value so you can manually make the colours in your swatch book. Okay, next we're also going to need the new Pattern Effects Volume 4. If you don't already have Pattern Effects, it's a great addition to be able to add some dimension to your print. You can use it for varnishes, embossing. There's a whole range of different things you can do with it, and you can combine different effects together. So we're going to open that up. Now the default view when you open up any of the ColorLogic palettes is always going to be in a thumbnail view, and that's just the way that Adobe works. Okay, so what we recommend is to change that to a named view, because you don't really know what the colors are going to be unless you put your cursor over it and wait a few seconds. So it's easier, in our opinion, to go to large list view, and also we recommend switching on persistent. What that means is if your computer was to crash, a few days later, then provided you'd actually, quit and save from Illustrator at some point after changing these settings, then they will be remembered, meaning when the next time you come back in, you will see your list like this. Okay, so I'm going to do that for all of them so I can see the names, persistent, and on that one as well. Now on the Pattern Effects one, you'll see here that we have, each pattern has a number. So we're now up to Pattern Effects number 61, all the way up to number 80. Okay, so there's 20 patterns, unique patterns per series, and then you have different effects. So with that pattern, you can instantly create a dimensional effect technique, or you can create an emboss, or just have the pattern as a metallic on its own, or varnish, or watermark effect, or watermark effects plus. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different effects that you can create with each pattern. And like I said, you can combine different effects. So you could have a metallic separation with a varnish and an emboss if you so wish. You can also combine different patterns together and lay them over the top of each other to create interesting effects. They can be scaled and rotated, and you can even edit them if you want to take things off the pattern to make them more unique. Okay, so what we're going to do here, I'm going to pin these onto the side just so I can actually have them out of my screen view so I can show you what I'm doing first of all. Okay, so on this piece of art file here, we set your page template to the size that you're obviously going to be working to, and we put on some OPA dots. These are the optical recognition dots for devices like the ESCO cutting device. You can also use these OPA dots with systems like Scodex that puts the, it's the UV polymer raised type of effect. It's like a UV varnish in a way, but it's not UV varnish. But great for putting a tactile finish or effect to your print. So ColorLogic will work with all those different systems. You can combine them with ours. We're not a competitor against them. We just create metallic effects, and we do everything at the design stage. Okay, so let's jump right in. First of all, you would have your swatch book. So the swatch book will be printed off the printing press that's actually going to produce your design. So if you're a designer working externally for a printer, then you need to contact that printer and say, I need a copy of your ColorLogic swatch book printed off and the type of press it was printed off. For example, your printer might be a digital printer. They might have one of the digital devices like the Xerox or the Ricoh, or they might have an analog machine like a conventional offset. Different printing processes give you different effects with your metallics because of the inks, the formulations, the substrates, the printing process itself. So you must get the swatch book from your printer. That swatch book will then give you a 100% color accurate system to design from, provided the printer reprints your job on the same paper, the same press, and with the same profile. So that gives you color consistency and reproducibility with your metallics. So assuming you have your swatch book in front of you, you would open your swatch book and choose the colors you want to design with. So I'm going to start off by showing you how that works here. So I'm going to scroll through and create some artwork. Let's see, number 90. So first of all, we can do drag and drop. So drag and drop will allow you to literally drag and drop the color onto your artwork file. Now obviously I'm not going to go in and show you how we created these files, but it's just a window that's been masked off, and we've got two different colours in there. Now what I want to show you is the appearance box in the top left corner of my screen. So when I added number 90, it changed it to a certain fill, which is our number 90 from our swatch book, with 100% of ColorLogic set on the top of the colour. Okay, and we set that to overprint. The reason why we put it on the top is for prepress issues. If you put the colour on top of the metallic and set the colour to overprint, if your artwork's not 100% and butting up to everything, and you have colour blocks sat on top of one another, you will get nasty overprint and trapping issues. So this way it takes care of all your prepress trapping issues as well. So that's the easiest thing to do, is add a colour. Now you might want to use some more colours. So let's maybe decide we want to work with gold. Now we can create a range of golds and bronze colours using silver foil or silver ink or toner, because all we're doing is printing colour on top. So you use the metallic as the reflective surface and the colour creates the colour space. And we've been doing this for about 10 years now, so we're very good at what we do with working with metallics, and we know all the tips and tricks. If you do have any questions, by all means do ask us. We're here to assist you. So we're going to find a gold, number 17, and I'm going to go in and colour up all these different blocks here. Now at the moment, each one of those blocks is going to be metallic gold, butting up to this metallic kind of aqua greeny blue colour. Now that's one thing we don't normally recommend, is putting metallic next to metallic. And that is because metallics naturally, when you print them next to each other, will look a little bit flat. You need a little bit of contrast between them. So when you're designing with metallics, what we would normally recommend is don't have everything in metallic, but use contrast. Put metallic next to non-metallic. So for example, if I didn't want these to be metallic, bearing in mind these are going to be in a fold, so like in a crease fold, so you're not really going to see those until the box is opened. If you're printing with metallic ink or toner, think about that when you're printing. If it's not a visual face of your packaging or your design that's going to be standing out on the crown, do you really need to make it metallic? Yes, it's a luxury to put metallics everywhere, but the more metallic you use, the more costly it is. The same thing goes when you're working with metallic substrates and foiling. Take into account how you're going to design for it. And this is why you can fall back on ColorLogic, because we are here to support our licensed printers. So if you need advice on a file conversion, send us a PDF file and ask us. We're quite happy to put little sticky notes on a PDF and send it back to you and say, this is what we would do. Now, for example, on this design, I might decide, I'm just going to pick up this aqua greeny colour in the background. I'm actually deciding not to put that in metallic. I'm going to actually do this in a 4-colour black, just to show you how I would design this file going to print. So, for example, you could have a nice, deep, rich, luxury black packaging. Imagine having it with a soft touch matte lamination over the top of it, and then have some elements on there in metallic to complement these folds. Gold logos. Sometimes a little bit gives you a lot more. So what I mean by that is, don't go over the top with your metallics. Try to go at a ratio of about 40% of the design in metallic to 60% process. Now that is the reason for that is because when you have metallics in a low light level room, the metallics will not shine very well, so they're going to look dull and dark. So if everything's metallic, the whole of the packaging is going to look dull and dark. So does that really shout out to you, buy me, if it looks drab and flat because it's just everything's metallic? So if you leave some of the design in process, you're always going to have this brightness to the design, which is the CMYK. And then when you pick up the product, it will interact with the lighting around you and all those metallics will come to life. Okay, so from here, it could be nice and simple. At this stage, I'm going to switch on some of my layers just to show you what I would do here. This would be a very simple design. We would, for example, put on some branding logos. So on here, we've put complementary gold to go with the gold flaps. We're also putting some areas in silver foil or silver metallic, such as this word lotus flowers here. So you can combine just a small, subtle amount of luxurious hints throughout your design, these little embellishments to make your design look nicer. Okay, so let's just have a look at the separation preview and let's see what it looks like first of all. So wherever you see silver on the screen here, so this is the color logic separation. Now we don't design thinking, oh, I'm printing with silver or I'm printing with white, I need to make a white separation. What we do is we design what we call the effect printing plate. That is, where do you want to see the effect when it's printed? Now if you design that way, you never have to rework in reverse. Design where you want the metallic, not where you don't want the metallic. So this is what we show you our customers. Whatever is silver here, if I'm printing this on a digital device with silver toner, such as the Xerox Series S, then that will come out with silver dry ink. If I print the same file on a Ricoh 7200 digital press that doesn't have silver toner, but has white toner, then I can print this file, the same artwork with no modifications whatsoever, just by sending it down to the EFI controller. The EFI controller will recognize the color logic separation, this silver separation, and it will then create a white plate for you from that separation, fully automatic. So whatever you see as white on your screen will be where the white ink will be printing. And whatever is silver on the screen is actually the silver foil paper. So what we say is one design can go out to any device without ever changing the file. Okay, so that makes our system very easy to use, very reproducible, and if you make a slight change in your budgets later on, for example, the brand says we want to print onto foil boards, then all of a sudden they decide that foil board is too expensive, can we print on metallic ink as well? Yes, we can. No changes to the file whatsoever. Just output a proof and send it to your customer. Okay, so let's now switch back on the CMYK. And we're going to add on some partner logos. So this is a recent job we'd actually done with one of our partners, which was ESCO. As I mentioned, it was being printed on Hazen paper and the files were being printed by Promotional Spring, which is one of our licensed printers. Now, from here, as far as we're concerned, the file technically has been designed correctly and is ready to go to print. Now this is just a basic one without using any patterns to start with. I'm going to go a little bit more complex on the next version. Okay, what I want to show you now is if I'm sending this to, let's just say, a device printing with silver ink or toner, then I don't need to do anything else to this file. That is because it will print the metallic where we asked it to. Now, if I want to print this on a digital device with white ink, the only one addition that we recommend to do is to put a silver background behind your design. So this is what I mean by doing that. So I've put color logic, so I just click on that background, you can see here it's the 100% of the color logic separation in the background. So remember what I said, if it's silver and I'm printing this onto foil paper, then that silver is the foil paper. If it's white, that means that's where the white ink is going to be. So whatever you see on the screen is how it's going to come out. And the reason we do that is because if we don't, and we don't put that silver background in, the background is white, therefore it will print with white ink, and you're going to waste all this area around here with white ink that you don't need and paint for something that's going to just push your job over the top. Okay, so you'll notice how on these open dots that we like to put a white frame around it. We believe that that just helps with the optical recognition system as the board is going through the cutter. So that's a little tip that we'd add on there. It doesn't really matter about how big that is. We normally give it about 3mm or 5mm. It's really dependent upon what you want to add in there. We've also obviously masked this design out, so that's just using a clipping mask. And again, these are just default things inside Illustrator. Okay, so very quick and very easy. We will now save as, I don't overwrite my original files. Okay, so that's the first test carton. We're also going to save that as a PDF. And let's wait for it to finish saving. Okay, so when we save this one as a PDF, we're actually going to take this one into the FX viewer, and we're going to then have a look at what the effects of this design look like. Okay, so let's first of all drag and drop that onto the FX viewer. The FX viewer is going to launch. It's going to have a little mini rip in the background, and it's going to rip that file. And here we have it. If you'll notice, the die line hasn't come out because on my artwork file in Illustrator I had it suppressed. Okay, so I'm going to visualize printing onto metallic ink or foil. But first of all, in case anybody hasn't seen the FX viewer, I find it quite strange if they haven't, but it's a three-dimensional virtual environment that allows you to see the FX of your design on the screen. And it's a great way to be able to find out if you've got something wrong with your artwork. For example, straight away when I can see this, I can see that the little optical dot in the bottom right-hand corner is not coming out correctly. So I need to look at that and work out what that problem is. But I can at least have a look at my file, so we can see here this is metallic. If I want to simulate showing what that would look like onto foil, I then switch it to foil. So you can see very clearly we have this metallic interaction, so we have metallic next to non-metallic. We have a few embellishments between silver and gold, and just a nice, simple, elegant design. Very quick, very easy to create with color logic, and zero white ink masking ever. You know, whatever's document white, printed with white. So what I'm going to do is go back and have a look at my PDF file and find out exactly what it was that I've done wrong down here. So it's more than likely there'll be something in here. There it is. It's a black set to overprint, and that actually should be, let's change that to registration. Okay, so now we have that one in place. That should theoretically come out correctly. I'm also going to remove the background silver just so I can show you what I mean about how wherever you design with white, print with white. So let me now save that again. Now, the way the FX viewer works, it's a drag and drop. Oops. You do have to physically drag and drop the PDF file into the FX viewer. It can't automatically update in the FX viewer program. We keep out all the fancy stuff, you know, the 3D packaging, you know, spot colors and all that fun stuff that all the other companies do, like, you know, Esco with their Studio tool or IC3D. They have great tools to show you all this stuff. Okay, so now I've got something wrong again. So again, I need to investigate that. But that's the great thing about using the FX viewer, is it allows you to see if you're going to have problems with your file. Okay, so visualize that on foil. So you can see now, because we deleted that silver background, it's just white. So that would print with white ink. So that's just one thing you need to remember when you design. Okay, so let's now jump into working on another design. Let's open this one up again. And let's get rid of those older files. Okay, so this time I'm going to get rid of the branding information. And I'm going to, that's why my dot was on the paper box die line. That would explain it. Okay, so problem solved on that one. So all I'm going to do is just duplicate that and pop it back over here. And there it was behind. Okay, so that should now come out correctly. Okay, I'm also going to go back and reset my artwork file and just make this back to how it was when I first started doing the demonstration. And I believe this one was, just so we can kind of see what we started with. Okay, so we're now back to our original file. This time we're going to work with pattern effects. Okay, so what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to work on this grey colour in the middle. Okay, so what I'm going to do first of all is you need to choose the colour you want to design with. So let's go into our graphic style palette again. And if anybody doesn't know how to use graphic styles correctly, there are a few tips and tricks with this, but it's really about making sure that you're adding the effect to the design. We do have video tutorials that explain to you how this works, but I'm just going to very quickly demonstrate this for anybody that doesn't know how to use graphic styles. Okay, so if I have a block of color, and let's just make this something that I can see, and make that 40, that's 0, like a peachy color. And I'm also going to put a stroke around that, a nice big fat black stroke. Okay, so looking at this box here and looking at the appearance, we can see it has a fill of color and a stroke. Graphic styles do not know that you have a stroke on your file. So if I was to drag and drop like I did before, watch what happens to the stroke. Okay, the stroke disappears because that information, the appearance, is being overwritten by our graphic style. Okay, and our graphic styles are based around fills, not strokes. Okay, so let me just undo that. So what we do with graphic styles is if you want to change the fill in the middle and retain the stroke around the outside edge, hold down the Option key on your keyboard, the Alt key, Option on a Mac, Alt will be on a PC. And now when I click on this, I'm not going to drag and drop, I'm just going to click on it this time, but just watch the appearance box appear. So it's added my effect. Okay, so you can see that if I put my cursor over that box and I hold down my Option key, notice how the cursor symbol has got a plus symbol. That means we're going to add the effect. So now I can just delete the color layer that I don't need. And now I have my filled box in metallic with a stroke around it. Okay, so like I say, we do have video tutorials that show you all this, but we tend to assume that you know what you're doing with basic Adobe techniques. And again, these are things inside Adobe, Illustrator, or any other application, not actual color logic techniques. Okay, so I'm going to choose a color. Let's go with number 110. Okay, so first of all, I've added a color. Let's change these to something else. Let's go with just a red. Oops. Actually, I'm going to go black this time. Yeah, let's make that a rich black. Okay, so again, keeping contrast into the design. So these folds that are folding inside of the box are going to be black. Okay, so now I want to add a pattern to this blue area. So now we're going to open up our pattern effect palette. Okay, so we're on version 4. Now, if anybody wants to know about pattern effects, let's just go to the ColorLogic website. And if you go to our products section, go down to pattern effects, and it will tell you all about the product. It will also show you the different volumes. So there's a demonstration video, there's examples of how you can use it, backgrounds for greeting cards, a whole range of different techniques and effects to show you what you can do with pattern effects and how it is being used in the industry. There's also a sample page you can print out and the user manual, although the user manual does install onto your hard drive anyway, so it's just, if you need it, it's there. If you click on these volumes, it will launch a lightbox or a viewing window on the screen. It will show you all the patterns in each volume, so you can decide whether you like the patterns and then buy that particular volume. So we're working with Pattern Effects Volume 4, and as you can see, these are some crazy patterns. Some of them you might need to design at a larger scale size. These are designed for more like a large format. If it's a little bit too close together, the fine lines, it might fill in. You might get a little bit of, especially on like an offset press, you might get a spreading of the inks. So just take that into account, the size of your pattern. But you can see there's a whole range of crazy different designs, which is going to be perfect for putting into some packaging files. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my file. I'm going to move this out of the way. I'm now going to work with one of my patterns. So let's just choose a random pattern. Let's go with, and this again is why it's handy to look at the views so you know exactly what they look like. I'm just trying to find something I know. Well, let's just stick with nice simple. I'm going to do dimensional effect. So if I'm selecting this blue panel at the moment, you need to be on the metallic layer. Okay, it's very important you select the metallic layer, the ColorLogic layer. And I'm going to click on dimensional effect. What that automatically does is applies the pattern to the design and creates that dimensional effect. So if I now zoom in, you will see how crazy this design is. Okay, so all the darker areas, let me really zoom in so it's a bit easier to see this. The darker blue is where it's going to be metallic because we'll have the silver separation underneath it. And let me just show you that. So if I turn off the color logic separation, all the effects disappear. So we're creating everything inside our separation. The light area, this blue, is just a normal CMYK. So each of these patterns we have will be CMYK next to metallic version of it, next to non-metallic, metallic, non-metallic, metallic, non-metallic, and so on throughout the design. Okay, so there's your design. Now, each of these patterns, as I mentioned, you can edit them. So what we're going to do here is we're going to scale it. Now make sure you turn off these because you don't want to scale the transform the object. We only want to transform the pattern. And then we preview that and you can see how we can scale the pattern up. So now I'm happy with my design there, okay. But maybe I decide I want to have it the different orientation. I don't want these angles on 45 degrees, so maybe I want to put it back to 90 degrees, so I'm going to transform that. So again, now it's taken on a different appearance. Okay, so I'm kind of happy with that now. Maybe I decide I want to put on a varnish on top of that. Now, personally, I wouldn't varnish this particular design on this particular pattern because the lines in between are too fine and you will get some kind of crazy effect. However, what I want to show you is you can edit these patterns. Okay, so let's just go to our swatches so we can see what the pattern is. It's number 61. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, first of all, I'm going to make a new appearance layer. And I'm going to go to my pattern effects palette and I'm going to make a varnish on top of it. Okay, so that's applying the same effect and style as the other layer because I duplicated it. So we're only replacing the effect. And now I'm going to edit that pattern. So from my normal swatches window, I'm just going to open that one up by double click on it. So you can see here that we can actually edit it. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to delete some of those elements. And let me see if I can do it this way quicker. Okay, so I've deleted the bit in the middle. I'm saving that as a copy. And then I'm going to click on done. Okay, so at the moment, the pattern is rotated the opposite direction. I need to put that back to what we did with the other one. So again, I'm going to scale it. Oops. And I'm going to rotate it. So now what I've done is I've edited the varnish pattern. So I removed the center area of the pattern. So now I only have the thicker lines. So now I'm going to have metallic underneath all those areas in dimensional effect. And I'm applying a varnish that's going to be unique to my company because I've chosen to edit it that way. Now, by all means, you could put another little thing in here and edit your patterns and do whatever you like with it. I'm just going to show you a couple of ways of working. Okay, so again, what we do here is we then decide you need to put on, I'm going to print this on silver foil, so I'm putting my silver background in there. I'm putting in my branded logos. Now, this is where things get a little bit more interesting because what we have is, on my file, I want to show you what we did with some pre-press techniques. Okay, so and I did the same thing with this partner box here. So at the moment, my design's I'm not happy with the design. So what I first of all want to do is I'm going to get rid of my varnish. I'll just switch it off so I don't actually have to work with that varnish at the moment. Because I probably won't print with the varnish, it's just to show you how you can use our system. Okay, so what I want to do here is I'm going to go in and show you what I did. So when I work with patterns or working with metallics in general, I normally frame out my logo areas so my patterns and metallics do not go all the way up to the logo. So what I mean by that is if I delete this black background, because that's what I put in for the other design, that was my design, that was my logo. So behind the back of this pattern here is, obviously it's a transparent area. So if we were to print this now and we didn't think about actually working this file correctly, we're actually going to get this pattern, this metallic effect running all the way through the actual design. That's not really what we want. So what I normally do is I would pick up this entire element here and I duplicate it, and I basically make it into one vector element. So let me see if I can try and show you how to do this without destroying my file. Okay, so if I go over here, let's do it out of the way so I can show you what I do. Place it that way, rotate it, let's give it a background so we can show you what I'm doing, and let's just make that, oops. Okay, so here we are. So what I'm going to do here is just to show you how we would do this. Let me just make that metallic because realistically I want to simulate this as best as possible. Okay, oops, helps if I put the overprint. Okay, so there we have it. So what I'm going to do is I want to get rid of all the metallic in the background of this actual element where the label is. It's really, I use it really when I'm focusing on patterns, but you can really take this into account for different types of design that you do. Okay, so what I normally do is I would select everything, group it, and make a copy of it. So I'm just going to hide the one that I've now made a copy of so I can now mess around with this file here. I then go to my Pathfinder tools in Illustrator. You can get all these things from the window menu, so window, Pathfinder. And what we're going to do here is we're going to combine everything into one item. Okay, so that makes one vector element with one color. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the object menu, path, and I'm going to offset that path by a certain amount. So it really depends on how much you want to push the metallic away from your design. So I'm just going to do this with, say, 3 mil for now, just so we can see what it looks like. You can see it's a massive amount there, so that's probably a bit too much. 1 millimeter will be enough. Okay, so click on OK. So again, now you can see there are all these little lines, and again, go to Pathfinder and unite all those again. So what we're trying to do here is just create an outline of the vector element. So now I can go inside and delete all these little areas like that. And sometimes it might just be easier to go into your view menu as a line art. Gives you easier to pick up and delete things. Let's finish off those two. Okay, so it looks a bit odd at the moment, okay, but now with this element here, now we can color that up in 0 metallic, because that's what we want. We don't want any metallic effect in there. So to do that, all we have to do, go to your color and go to the color logic silver separation. Now, if it's not in your artwork already, you will get that from your swatches. So one of the swatch palettes we opened up earlier. So I'm going to click on color logic silver. And the value, we're going to make it 0, so basically means no metallic, and then put over print fill. What that does is it knocks the metallic out of the background, because this background color we had here is metallic. So now when I bring back my design, let's get rid of that original black color. You can see my design has this process color behind it with then the metallic effect. So that's the technique that we're going to be working with. It's just a little tip and trick that we like to recommend. Obviously, when you're working with your paths and everything, take into account things like these little lines. You might need to change your path shape. But again, it's really just how your design looks. Okay, so over here, we're going to apply this same technique. Now, I've already obviously done the masking on these files. So all I need to do is decide what color to put in the background. So as I said, you can do this using the make it silver, overprint. So now I've got metallic running behind the background, which will work for this design, because all this design is a lot of metallic in here. If I made that just process in the background, it's going to look a little bit kind of bright, but again, you can do so if you want to. So let me show you that one with 0%. So the 0% is going to come out a little bit more. That foil would work, but yeah, I personally think using it at 100% will be better. So now we've also got to take into account we've got gold next to metallic blue, silver next to metallic blue. So a design like this, it might be better to put a little bit of a stroke around these items. And to do that, nice and simple, we're just going to duplicate the silver down here. Okay, we're going to go to our strokes. I'm going to put that to the outside. I'm going to change the weight of that to maybe 0.5. and we're going to change that value down to 0. Oops, wrong one. And then set the stroke to overprint. Okay, so what that's given me is actually giving me a slightly different effect. Okay, it's kind of cool the way it works. It gives you a little bit of trapping and choking on your design. So it nips out or nips in the metallic here. So we've got metallic and then it stops. So then we're not going to get any shift or halos around our design. And then we've got this white edge as well, just to accent that sort of like text. It's just going to make it stand out that little bit nicer when you go to print. So it's all these little tips and tricks that you really need to think about when you're making your design. With these stars, I'm going to do this slightly different. I'm going to go and make the, let's give it a stroke of, what's the colour in the background? So the colour in the background is number 110. Okay, so if I go here and I can put a stroke of number 110, a stroke there, so let's find number 110. And I'm going to put those to 0.25. Let's put those on the outside, and that gives me some instant trapping as well. So two different techniques. I like this technique when I'm working with just the silver areas because it gives me that white highlight edge, which I kind of like. I think it's quite cool. And then these ones are going to have this natural blue, I guess. It's just the way the file looks. So apply that theory throughout your design. I'm just going to go in and pick these up. So let me just zoom in. And do this one as well. And I also put it on the frame behind here. I'll come back and do that separately. Let's just get this one done first of all. It was number, hold on, what we were doing, number 110 in metallic. So let's just put that to silver. We'll print, that makes the same colour as the background. And then let's finish off this one. Again, make it the same colour as the background. And this time I'm going to change it to 0% so I frame out. Because again, I don't want the metallic button up to my metallic gold area. But that's just my personal choice of how I design my files. Okay. Next, what we need to do is I'm going to switch on the layers. I'm going to switch on my die line so I can get an idea of where certain areas are. In the background here, I'm actually going to put a new box. And that needs to go behind the back of the partner branding. And that box I'm just going to put to 30, 30, 30, 100. Okay, and again, same thing that I did here. If you were doing metallic in the background, frame it out like I've done here. What my framing on this one that I do, let me just zoom in. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that on the screen, but the frame here in the background is just 100% black. So I actually use the colour from our colour guide. So 100% black, and the background is what I did as a shiner, or a rich black. So it was 30 cyan, 30 magenta, 30 yellow, 100 black. So there's a visual difference. So that framing back just means that I'm not going to get all of, let me try and do this with the, let me turn off this one. Okay, so you can see it happening there. Let me turn these off. Okay, so what happens is when I actually frame it out, it's only putting 4 colour black here and 100% black there. Just again, it's just pre-press techniques to get the best out of your design. Okay, so I'm kind of happy with my design. Maybe I want to do something a little bit different. For example, what if we added a metallic gradient to this design? So I'm going to change this background colour. So again, picking up that blue background, I'm going to go onto my fill layer, and this time I'm going to change it into a gradient. Okay, so that now gives me the ability to change the colours. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to change the orientation, and I'm going to go to my colour palette, the Colour Logic one, which has just our CMYK swatches. I'm going to choose some different colours. So let's go with a red. And let's go with a yellow. I'm going to make like a sunset kind of colour. Now here I'm going to put the yellow bit in the middle, and I'm going to duplicate the red onto the left, and now I'm going to change my start and end points. So my start point I want to be about here, and the same with this one. You control where you want the metallics. So now I have this kind of sunset kind of looking colours, I guess. Reds going into coppers and golds, running through a dimensional effect pattern with all these different techniques in the background, with silver foils, gold foils, and everything in between. Now you'll see here that my design isn't 100% right in this area, so what I need to do is just fix that. And it's more than likely because of the way that I did the framing. Again, I'll just quickly do this just to get this done. I would normally recommend doing it, well, in fact, let's do it accurate. There's no point in doing things halfway, so I'm just going to put it in a, add in a new anchor point. And then this one, I can then change across to here, because then it cuts off that corner, so when you're obviously doing your die cutting, it works better. Okay, so add in a point there, click on this one, drag it across. Okay, so if I'm now happy with my design, I can now obviously do a visual. So let's do that one again. So let's get rid of the silver in the background, just so I can show it with the white in the background. I guess you know how it's going to work. I'll pretend this is going to be with silver ink. Save as, PDF. Now this time I'm saving this one as PDFX3. Now the reason I'm doing that is because we're using patterns. Now patterns are designed using transparency settings, and some rips don't like the transparency settings from Illustrator. The FX Viewer is one of those rips, or the rip that we use for FX Viewer doesn't particularly like them unless all the transparency is being flattened. So basically PDFX3 has a built-in flattener, transparency flattener. I think that's in, where is it? Output. Oh, it's in here somewhere. But anyway, it's all built into that anyway. So basically the idea behind this one is it will get rid of all those transparency settings. So I'm going to save that as a PDF. That will then now allow me to open that up in the FX Viewer. If you don't save it as PDFX3 when you're working with patterns, it will look all grey on your screen. But that is explained in the user manual for pattern effects. Okay, so do read the pattern effects user manual. So I'm going to take that file, I'm going to drag and drop that onto the FX Viewer. And it's going to render that file, it's going to bring it into the environment for me, and then I'm going to see that in metallic ink, and we'll also see it in foil as well. So it's really to show you how these patterns work. So you can see here that when the light catches the patterns, they actually flip-flop and change sort of dimension. I'm going to show you that in another way as well. Let's just turn that into foil. So we have our foiled design. Now I'm going to show you that in a different environment. So we have two viewing environments. One is the studio, one is the booth. Okay, so the viewing booth is, like the name suggests, it's a viewing box, a pre-pressed light box. And I'm going to reset that. So this time the light source is up above the top, so you need to push the print back like you would in real life. Okay, so what I wanted to do with this one is really just to show you how this really works. So let's focus on this block here of colour. So you notice how these lines, we've got dark lines here, and then they're going to light. Notice that? Dark lines. So focus on just this little line here, this corner. Light, dark, light, dark. It has this flip-flop effect. And that is dimensional effect. It makes everything kind of jump around and gives you this dimension on your print. It's a great way to be able to add interaction to your metallics without any post-finishing techniques, no decorative embellishment other than a 5-color print. Okay, let's pop that one back to the viewing studio room, because I think it's got more natural real life conditions. Okay, so that's my file for that one. Now, of course, if you decide you want to change and do maybe 5 or 6 different versions with different patterns, well, we can do that as well. That's the great thing about working with this system. So let's just save as, there we go, back one. Save as an AI file this time. Oops. And you can import these into other programs. You know, for example, you can place this into InDesign if you want to do variable data over the top. You can even do variable data in metallics. What I want to show you here is just adding different metallic patterns. So what I would do is I would go into my design here. I would more than likely create its own layer. So on here, let's just make a new layer and call these backgrounds. And I'm going to move that onto there. Oops, probably better not do it that way because it's in a mask. There we go. Let's go back and do it without moving it onto different layers. So I'm going to keep it inside my art layer here. Okay, so I'm going to basically take that. Oops. Okay, I'm just going to duplicate it. Now you can put them on different layers if you want. The way this file's been set up is a little bit more tricky, and I don't want to start stripping all these different layers out and causing more problems. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do it the more logical, easy way. I'm just going to take all of this and click that in new layer. So this is version 1. I'm going to duplicate that one, 2, and this final one is going to obviously be number 3. Okay, so what I'm going to do first of all, let's work on version number 1. So version number 1, we've got our style and our colours created, that's fine. So we're now going to work on version 2. Version 2, I'm going to select the metallic pattern. I'm going to open my pattern palette. I'm going to choose a different pattern. Let's use number 71. That applies the pattern to that design. Again, choose if you want to do any scaling or anything else. I'm happy with that one. I'm going to rotate it as well, just to be a bit more creative. Okay, so that's version 2. Maybe decide I don't like the colours, so maybe the client wants to see a different range of colours. So you look in your swatch book and you decide what colours you want to use. So there might want to be number 90 on this side, 90 on that side. So remember, we're just using the actual colour palette for the swatches, the CMYK, to colour up these files. Okay, that's version 2. And version 3 goes the same way. So as you can see, very quick, very easy. You can actually go through and create these different types of effects. And again, let's just make this one. Let's use, I think that one looks pretty cool. Okay, again, let's make, in fact, no, I don't particularly like that style. Let's go with this one, this dotty one. That's really a personal preference of what goes with the design, but you get the idea. Let me just again change some colours in this one. So basically, within a very short period of time, you can create files in a whole range of colours and effects. And let me just show you this in real time by having the separation tool, separation preview switched on. So let's open up separation preview, and I'm going to pick up this background. Let me just turn off the CMYK. So remember what I said before, whatever's white will print white if you're doing this onto a metallic substrate. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to swap the pattern out, and you'll see that all these areas here is going to be a white ink mask automatically created. So as I go through, and I can narrow this down, if I only want to look at the dimensional effects patterns, just type in the starting words for dimensional and it will narrow it down just to the dimensional ones, which is great because you can then go through and decide, do you like the effects? Now, do you notice how something went very wrong there? That's because I wasn't concentrating, and in my appearance box I was actually on the colour layer. So again, go on to the metallic layer and then go through and change them. So different patterns, you'll see how that white separation automatically generates itself as we are creating the design. So it's a great solution to be able to go through, like I said, add all your effects. When you're happy, boom. Now, one little top tip I'm going to show you here as well, and again, this is all about Illustrator, this is nothing to do with ColorLogic at this point, is that you also need to be able to, oops, let me try and move that out of the way again. You also need to think about where the pattern falls in your design. So at the moment, this pattern doesn't really fall in any logical way. Wouldn't it be a bit more nicer if we could move the pattern to a different position? And you can do. So there's a key on your keyboard, and on the Mac it's next to the Z. It's like a little weird kind of symbol, kind of like a little backwards comma with a squiggly thing above it. I'm not quite sure what it's called, but if you press it while selecting the metallic layer panel and click on a point in your pattern. So for example, I'm going to pick on, say, this cross area here because it's easy for me to do. If I press my button and then move it, it will allow me to position that pattern somewhere else on the design. So I might decide actually that this box here, or wherever it is, would look better in the center. And because these are seamless patterns, so now you can see that these patterns are looking a little bit more in line. So it's just really how you can move things around. And again, scaling, rotating, cropping and everything else will also help you get the best out of your system. And you don't have to have the pattern on every panel. You know, at the moment, let's just duplicate that. So I've got two layers, two of them sat on top of each other now. The one that's on the top, I'm actually just, get my content fill. I'm going to go to this area. Oh, my pattern must have been pretty big. Okay, so I'm just going to get these and bring it down. And all I'm going to do here is I'm just basically trying to only put the pattern in a box in the middle, and I'm going to get rid of all the pattern in the background. And of course you take a little bit more time than I'm doing with this one. Let's just make that fill 100% silver. Oops. Okay, so let's get rid of the gradient on that one because I don't particularly like the gradient. Let's have it as number, what colours have we got in our system? Number 17, so I have a gold. So you can just see there very quickly, obviously I've put silver panels in the background and the pattern's only on the base, and maybe decide that that doesn't want to be there. So you can just, you know, get the idea of adding different things in different areas to make the best out of your design. So I hope that helps explain how you can use the new Pattern Effects Volume 4. Also showing you tips and tricks on how to work your file inside Illustrator, which is possibly one of the harder programs to use with ColorLogic, purely because there's different techniques that you can do. But do fall back on our training videos. We have the client login area. We have video sections for Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign. We show you how to create every single technique that ColorLogic can create individually in each little tiny video. And there's also tips and tricks. There's quick start video tutorials. There's recorded webinars. We even have a 48-page brochure which you can download, print out. It's already in metallic, and you will learn from that as well. So anybody have any questions, please by all means do contact us at support@color-logic.com. And I hope this masterclass tutorial has been some use. Looking forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you and have a great day.